Hi, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to our People Matters virtual learning series. My name is Esther Martinez, and it's a pleasure to welcome you back once again to our masterclass series. Today's topic is a very big challenge and yet a great opportunity for all of us in the HR communities in managing employee experience, especially in the context of high growth market and especially in the context of the disruption that we are all facing. Very critical theme for us to work on. And I'm going to be introducing our speaker for today, and he's going to take us through some insights and reflections about how we can design, execute, and curate experiences that really matter for our employees. So joining us today, we have Kartik Krishnamurthy, Managing Director of Cornerstone On Demand Asia. Hi, Kartik. How are you?
Hey, Esther. Good. How are you?
Very well. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
So what we're going to be doing, like we always do, before I give it over to Kartik, we're going to have some few questions that we want to engage with you. So be ready for those. But before I open up the questions, I want to briefly introduce you to Kartik. He needs no introduction in Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific. He's been working in the region for a very long time in his career. He's currently the Managing Director for Cornerstone On Demand Asia. And in this role, he's responsible for the overall growth strategy for the Asia region, which includes Hong Kong, ASEAN, South Korea, and India as well, and provides oversight for the sales, marketing, client success, and partnerships and alliances. So welcome once again, Kartik, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Great. So let's have a look quickly to the first few questions that Kartik and I have prepared for you. As you know, we'll invite you to open a new window on our system and go to menti.com. So if I can request the team to just show yes. So you can say open www.menti.com. The code that we have for today's session is 429590. So you're going to have the same question, but before I request you to answer the question, I'm going to request the team to share the screen, the first PwC. If I can have that first, I'm sorry, I should have given the direction clearly. So the first question we prepared for you is on how the top global threats for your organization has changed. So mid-January 2020, PwC had showcased the top 10 threats that organizations are most worried about. And if I can see those on screen, that will be great. If it's not possible, I will say them, no problem. So in that report, we had in the top 10 global threats, we had over-regulation as number one. Very close to it was trade conflicts, followed by uncertainty in economic growth, followed by cyber threats and policy uncertainty. So these were the 5 top global threats. So I'm going to repeat them very quickly. The first one was over-regulation. The second was trade conflicts, uncertain economic growth, cyber threats, and policy uncertainty. So those were the threats in January 2020. And obviously that data probably would have been collected in quarter 3, quarter 4 of last year, calendar year. If I were to request all of you to reflect, if you think of what are the current threats and how much of that has changed on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 means, the threats are exactly the same as the ones I mentioned. 10 is like, my threats are completely different. What's threatening my business is completely different post-COVID-19. So where would you be? The threats have not changed at all, or my threats are completely changed? Okay, so we started to see, I'm going to wait a little bit, Kartik, because we still have only 30 responses. And it's interesting that this data just came bang in the middle.
Yeah, and it looks like it's moving towards the right-hand side, towards closer to the 10, which is, well, not surprising, but yeah.
So when you speak to, do you feel these global threats shift that we're seeing, whether it's 7 point, it seems like it's going towards a 7-ish. Do you feel this shift is only temporary, or do you think this may actually change the way we look at threats, probably more mid or long term?
Yeah, I think it'll be more mid to long term. Look, the crisis we are in, and I'll talk about that later, is an unprecedented time we're living in. So most countries, governments, policymakers, organizations, companies have not seen a situation like this. And probably, I think the last one was even the SARS and H1N1 was not this bad. Probably was a Spanish flu, right? So organizations and governments and policymakers and people are just trying to figure out what's the new norm moving forward. So I think many of these threats in varying degrees would change, and some would be here for a very long time and may become the new norm.
Yeah, great to see that. I think if you were to remove the outliers, some of us that rate it maybe 2, 3, which is bringing the average down. Majority of the bulk, if you were to take the median, it's probably going to be at the 7.5 upwards.
Yeah.
So I think that's really aligned to what you were mentioning. Great. So should we move to the next question? I think this second question that we prepared for you was to really understand the dynamics of the audience today, and where are you as an organization, if you were to reflect on your current state as a business today, what best describes what you're going through as an organization? So the first option we prepare for you is we are in survival mode, we're fighting it up, and we are hoping the situation improves, and we're just in that survival mode for now. So that's one option. Second is we're trying to pivot. So we're changing completely our business model. We're changing the way we do business. We either changing our customers or we're changing our offerings, but we're completely pivoting. And the third is we are thriving. We're capturing those opportunities that are emerging. We have a product that is probably supporting or aligned to the current situation. Where would you be out of these three extremes? It'll be lovely to see the audience, because that will also help Kartik as he takes us through the presentation today. Looks like, as always, when you have diverse groups, you have to address everyone's requirements.
Yeah, well, it looks like the survival mode is winning, and well, not surprising, right? Yeah, I figured that would be exactly where we find majority of our.
It was a matter of time, no? It was a matter of time.
I'm very curious to see, who are the thriving organizations, maybe in specific industries that they found a niche that they're going after. But yeah,
interesting. Great. So I think, does it surprise you to see most of us being in the survival mode? Is that what you're sensing with your clients? And
exactly.
Do you see many of those survival mode waiting and watching whether we should pivot or we should hold? What's the thought process?
Yeah, I think right now it depends on which industry you're in, right? If you're in retail, hospitality, services, you're literally. But if you look at what some of the experts talk about, this is the moment when a lot of the organizations are also saying, let's take advantage of this crisis. Like Rahm Emanuel, who was President Obama's chief of staff, very nicely put it, never let a good crisis go waste. So a lot of companies will look at this opportunity or this situation and say, okay, what can we do to double down? What can we do to improve the skills of our people? So when we come out of this, and we will come out of this, don't get me wrong, can we be productive from day one? Can we start that hockey stick growth for our respective businesses? So look, I think it's right. 36 of the audiences have said they're in survival mode, which is exactly where I expect them to be.
Very nice. Very nice. So you're saying the pivoting doesn't necessarily have to be on the offerings. It also can be on the way we work and the way we deliver value.
Correct. And also, obviously, how you look at the experience of your employee, because at the end of the day, you need to make sure that they, and we'll talk about that again later, but you got to make sure that the experience that they're having currently in the environment they're living in helps you pivot to the next level of your growth as a company.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kartik. And that takes me to the third question, which is specific on experience. And what we wanted to ask you all is to reflect on in this COVID-19 situation, how is employee experience overall as a strategic importance um, located in your pecking order as an organization? So the first, if I can have the question also just to show on the screen. So the first answer is yes, it's increased dramatically of importance. So it's become a really, really, really important focus area for us. The second is about, well, importance hasn't really changed, the same as it was before. And the third option is it's reduced of importance right now because we are prioritizing something else that may be more, it's taking precedence. So where are you right now on these three? And again, that will help us, Kartik, as we go through your session.
Correct. Wow.
I can see it's interesting that we're taking longer time to answer that question. That means it's like, oh, I'm not sure about it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
What's been your experience when you're talking to your current customers, your clients? What's been your experience without looking at the data for a minute?
Yeah, look, from looking at speaking to our clients and customers, like I mentioned, this is the new norm in terms of how people are working. People are working, they're home, their kids are home, so they have to balance out both their professional as well as their personal environment. So, it's up to us as employees, as leaders, to ensure that the employee experience of our talent should be number one priority. When I say experience, there's a lot of things to that, but like I said, if we are able to manage and keep the morale and experience of our talent at the highest levels and invest in that today, when we come out of this, it will just provide dividends to the customers and obviously overall to the shareholders of the respective companies. So from my perspective, my clients, my customers are saying, okay, this is the time to double down and make sure our employees are getting the right experience that they need to learn and grow.
Yeah. So what will be your message then for those 20% of our audience that say, well, I really wish this was a priority, but we are overwhelmed with other things at the moment. What will be your message to them?
Look, I love to understand, again, this 20% where they fall. And if there are these organizations that literally are in the survival mode for a variety of reasons, and I get it, right? If you're in that mode, you have other things to worry about and take care first before talent experience or employee experience. But I would say to them, look, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be either or. I would say, if your business model is strong and if you believe that you will come out of this strong on the other side, take this opportunity to invest in your employees because you will need it. So if your business model is strong, invest in your talent, you come out of the other side very strong. You just see dividends back.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kartik. And probably we will cover that as we go through your session and also in the closing remarks as well. So before I give it over to you, Kartik, I want to invite everyone to keep sharing your questions on the right side of the chat. So either you can send them here if you're joining us from the People Matters live stream, or if you're in the LinkedIn live as well, please put your questions there. If you're seeing us from YouTube live, again, you can put the questions there because we have a great team that is going to curate them from all different channels to make sure that it reaches Kartik. And we will take the questions at the end of the presentation. So then it allows Kartik to go to his flow with everyone's permission. All right, so we're ready to go. Over to you, Kartik.
Thank you very much. All right. Once again, thank you, Esther, and good afternoon to everybody on this webinar. As Esther said, my name is Kartik. I'm the Managing Director for Cornerstone Asia, based in Singapore. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how organizations or how companies are looking at the employee experience in high growth environments. And we'll talk about high growth in a different context, especially in the era we're living in. So obviously, a lot of you are aware and will be cognizant that we are living in an age of disruption. And anyone in the business world, even casual observers of that, realize that we are living in an era of mass disruption. And obviously, when we talk about mass disruption, the number one thing on everybody's mind on every newspaper headline is obviously COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic is a humanitarian crisis, and it continues to take a tragic toll on people's lives. And there's also no denying the fact that it's also become the catalyst for change, whether it's economic, societal, personal, corporate, on a scale that's not been seen since wartime. And the scale of change and the speed at which the change is happening shines a bright light on the fact that companies are facing, once in a generation shift. And for all the uncertainty about what the future will look like, it's very clear that shift will be digital. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it on whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. There's a very popular meme that's going around that neatly encapsulates the tipping point for digital. I think there was a questionnaire that was sent to various executives about who's driving your digital transformation, and the first two options were your CEO and your chief digital officer. But what I found interesting was the number third. It was highlighted in big red circle which said COVID-19. In short, companies and even industries will radically change. The markets will radically move, requiring businesses to shift in ways that have not been anticipated before, right? So products and services that were revolutionary even 3-4 months ago will be rendered obsolete if companies don't adapt to these market changes fast enough. So as I look at all of this, the number one job for us as leaders in our respective organizations is to ensure that our companies, and most importantly, our people, aren't left behind. Because as we think about the age of disruption, we're also living in a uniquely human age. The world is extremely different, like I said, to what was 3-4 months ago. And we're seeing a significant difference in the way people work. We're seeing a difference in the way their work environment changed. And the companies are concerned about the well-being of their people. They're focused on creating a radically different experiences for their people at work. We're also seeing employees bringing a new set of expectations. They're asking their employees or employers, for help on a deeply human level. They're asking for safety, looking for trust, for transparency, for social accountability, purpose, and the growth at work. So what does this mean, right? As I talked about, these sweeping global forces are reshaping our workplace, our workforce, and obviously our work itself. We're seeing the potential of technology and its ability to impact people in a very meaningful way. And I think this is the right time where we can rethink technology from the ground up and focus at their respective workplaces. So we're literally, at the cusp of an exciting new phase and era. So let's take a look at where all this disruption is impacting employees. And thank you everybody for the polling questions. As Esther mentioned, in about mid-January, PwC had published a global annual CEO survey about the top 10 global threats. And at that point, you can see the sentiment was all around uncertainty, conflict, threat, volatility, a lot of nervousness among the businesses. And obviously post-COVID, like many of you have said, a lot of these threats will change, and some of these threats will change for I guess, for a foreseeable future. It may become the new norm. But there was also a recent Global Business Network survey by YPO Global that talked about 60% of the CEOs between recession and uptick. So what does this mean? It means that things will get better. But as you look at these top 10 threats, you see the speed of technology change at number 8. It always has been and will continue to be at the top 10. And like I said, it will even accelerate given the environment we're looking in. However, what I find even more interesting is the fact the lack of availability of key skills has been on a steady rise over the last 10 years. So in 2019, while the lack of key skills was at number 3, it has slipped to number 6 in 2020. It is still a couple of points high technology change, and this continues to be significant. And we need to think about this as leaders in our respective companies, because it appears that we're doing a really good job retooling our systems than we are with our people. In fact, 35% of companies across Asia Pacific were polled in that same report that had lack of digital skills and the impact it had on their performance. And 60% of the organizations had not taken action to tackle the lack of digital skills to their employees. And I mentioned COVID-19 is just going to accelerate this need. So what this says to me is, between the speed of technology change at number 8 and the availability of key skills at number 6, is that we are not keeping up or helping our people with this change. We become really good in retooling our processes, our systems, than we are with our people. So what result? This actually resulted in a crisis for people at work. I spent a lot of time talking to CHROs or other senior executives, and almost all of them are concerned about their people. We are living in an era of unprecedented high levels of anxiety, high levels of stress at the workforce, increased disengagement, and tremendous burnout. In a recent study by Cigna's 360 Wellbeing Survey found that 87% of employees globally are experiencing burnout in their current jobs. This number, in fact, is much higher in Singapore, about 92%. This is even more exacerbated due to COVID-19, where employees, as I mentioned earlier, are working from home and need to balance their needs of their work and also the attention of their children and their schoolwork. So we've also found that the number one reason why people are leaving jobs because of all of this stress is their inability to learn and grow. So of course there's stress, and of course they're burning out, and of course they're leaving. And guess what? It's not going to slow down anytime soon. This is the new normal. There's no indication that the pace of technology change and the global change that comes with it is going to slow down anytime soon. It's going to have a massive impact on our respective businesses and industries.
Kartik, if I may just interrupt you for a minute, I think you will have to go on a presentation mode because we can see the next screen. So we would prefer if we can have the whole screen on.
Okay.
Yes, no problem. We could still see the slides, but if you could use the slideshow.
Okay, I am on slideshow. Give me a second.
No problem.
Looks like my PowerPoint. Okay, can you see it now?
Let's try it
again. Or is it the same?
I'll just tell you in a second. It's still the same. So I think there is a use slideshow there.
Yep, I am looking at it. Okay, it's still showing the same though?
Yeah, it's still showing the same.
Yeah, so, should we just continue? Because I've done that.
I think it's perfectly fine because we can see the slide perfectly. So that's not an issue.
Okay,
no problem. Fine. You carry on.
No worries. No worries. So like I said, what do we do about this? As I talked about, we need to think about focusing on cultivating adaptive humans, right? Not just humans that people are looking to change. We need to cultivate people who are confident in navigating continuously in terms of their change and their need to grow. It's more than just the ability to adjust and respond to ambiguity and change. It's about the attitude. It's about the willingness to drive external and internally to ensure that we are always open and are continuously ready to change and evolve. There was an interesting study done by Mercer not too long ago, which looked at the global talent trends. And in many regards, the way we are conducting business today, and rightly so, as pointed out by the survey, majority of you, about 40% of you talked about this, is we are in a surviving mode right now, and rightly so, given the situation we find ourselves in. However, we also need to think about our people and the organizations, right? So as we think about most companies operating in a fixed environment, whether it's from a people model or a business model, they really haven't developed the organizational ability to be agile, as the world demands. And no surprise, in these fixed business environments, we see very low levels of engagement. We see very low levels of innovation. And the way we are looking at that environment is exactly where we find ourselves, is around survival and survival mode. But the question is, what do we do moving forward, right? So traditionally, what we've looked at is companies have relied on what's called, in the same study, what's called IQ, the capacity of knowledge, and the measurement as a measurement of high skill and high perceived value. IQ causes people to resist change because it means that they're no longer an expert, and change for them is a threat. So we then started focusing on what's called EQ, which is the capacity for emotional mastery. And EQ helps people to react to change and deal with it. It's still a reactive stance, but they can handle change better while still not at an optimal relationship with change. But looking forward, what we need to think about is developing people around adaptive quotient, which is a high capacity for change. These are the people who are looking for ways to continuously learn, take risks, embrace change, experiment. So when people can gain confidence in themselves, engage more with each other, it becomes more of a proactive relationship with change. So at the end of the day, AQ really enables people to embrace and expect change as a place of opportunity. And one of the questions that's often asked is, what are the key traits of folks who have, very high level of AQ? And these are the people who are traditionally optimists. So they'll always look at the glass as half full. They're curious by nature. They're resilient. They rebound and recover from change very, very quickly. They have a big, which is well with an open mind without bias. They celebrate failure, and they're highly resourceful people. These are the people who find ways to be creative to solve new problems. So what we need to do is to find ways as companies, as organizations, to empower people with the confidence that they need today in this overwhelming pace of change. And with the AQ traits we just saw, it just gives you a little bit of a glimpse of what kind of people do we need, what kind of skills do we need to cultivate within that section of the population within our organizations. So the question remains, what if technology could help people adapt and change? What if technology could help people develop a much higher level of adaptive quotient? And what if technology could be the way to augment our abilities at work? One of the key drawbacks of our HR technology, whether we like it or not, we left people behind. We focus so much on the software, on the tools, on the technology, on organizational performance that we paid very little attention to our people. And we need to do a much better job in giving people the technology and support they need, and really make them empowered to navigate the change they find themselves in today and thrive in this environment. Let's take a look back a little bit at the brief history of the HR technology industry. And I'm sure many of you look at this and you kind of get it. Focus on automation, previously manual processes, whether it was recruiting, performance, learning. The name of the game was, how do we optimize HR? How do we squeeze some cost out of it and make HR professional jobs a little bit more fulfilling, less manual, less administrative? We then started to understand that technology can help, unify these processes in a very meaningful way. So you no longer had silos of learning and performance and succession, etc., because it was all part of one. It was all about managing the supply and demand of talent to meet the ever-needing change of our businesses. So we then had the era and dawn of talent management, and then unified talent management. And the next phase, around 5 to 7 years ago, we saw this whole advent of engagement, right? How do we measure engagement in a more meaningful way and drive engagement within our workforce? So we start to see this explosion of innovation and point solutions, and a lot of the big software vendors coming up with very cool tools and engagement software. But what I am personally excited about is where we're going next is the era of experience. And how do we holistically look at experience from an employee standpoint at work and make it meaningful for them on a day-to-day basis. And the good news is that, while we are focused on integration, engagement, our employees have started to look further even before us. They've started to look at consumer technologies in their personal lives and how it augments the things they do on a daily basis in their work lives. This is just an illustration of a typical, I guess, day in a life of anybody from a work perspective, right? You get up in the morning. If you're like me, you have the alarm that wakes you up. You look at some news. Unfortunately, today is all about COVID-19. Have your cases in respective countries flattened? Have or in a partial lockdown mode, you may want to go for a run or use virtual workout apps to measure your calories. You then get on your calls. You get on your video conferences through Zoom or MS Teams or WebEx, and also more importantly, help your kids with their school virtual instructor-led training. You may, whether it's through Grab or Deliveroo or Food Panda, and then as the day progresses, etc. The point I'm making is our people are already there. Our talent is already there, and they've been thinking this for quite some time. And so, as organizations, the time is perfect for us to reinvent and think about technology at work. The good news is, we at Cornerstone have been thinking about this for quite some time, and we've looked at, how do we create an experience that is frictionless, that's personalized and relevant in terms of their work experiences and where people are increasingly effective and engaged. So when we talk about frictionless, it means providing the content, the knowledge, and coming to our employees. We can't assume that our people will take time out of their busy lives to log on to a learning portal and learn. It's not going to happen. So we need to bring the software, the technology to people work and help them to learn and develop in the flow of work. When we talk about personalization, all of the apps on our phones are highly personalized based on the history in the terms of how we've interacted with those apps. We also know that our employees are different. No two employees are the same. The skill sets are different. The way they want to learn is different. Some want to learn on the laptop, some on the go, some micro learning, some nano learning, some want a 2-hour learning platform, etc. So the question is, how do we personalize what they want and give it to them no matter where they are, so they can cross collaborate and improve as talent and employees of your organization. And last but not the least, relevant. How do we look at what people are doing and help contextualize their learning and at our disposal, whether it's Outlook integration, Salesforce, workplace productivity tools, etc. We need to bring it to them so that they can start using this in a more frictionless and things that are more relevant for them as employees. This is our vision moving forward: talent management and talent experience, bringing two distinct lenses together as we think about our product going away. And talent experience is just an additional layer and lens that we build on top of all of our products, and more importantly, talent management. Management, it's more of a business perspective, right? I'm sure when you speak to your CFO, your CEO, your COO, they're talking about how do you attract the top talent faster than competition? How do you identify key skills in a market that's hard for you to find? How do you diversify your talent pools? How do you move with speed and agility business environment so you can move from surviving to thriving, and obviously looking for low cost? But talent experience is equally, right? A research shows that your employees are looking for four very basic things. Number one, develop my skills continuously so I can stay relevant in an ever-changing environment, and not just for today's job, but for jobs for tomorrow. Number two, what's my clear path to succession and what's expected of me? How am I doing that role? And this, by the way, globally is on the rise, right? As you think about the pace of work that's constantly changing, almost in every single organization, employee surveys are, where are we going and what's expected of me? How do I get better? and they want to be included without any biases. They want their voices heard. They don't want to be another cog in the wheel, and they want to be valued for the uniqueness. They want to have a simple work life. I always thought technology is going to make my work life easy, simple. I bet it hasn't for many of you, because it hasn't for me. So the holy grail of simplicity is what our employees are looking for. So when we think about talent experience, we think about it as a journey that comprises of micro moments within an employee's time within the process. It's not a singular process. It's a multi-dimensional process that allows employees to explore their careers, right? Whether they are developing opportunities or looking at options to go to the next opportunity. It needs to be tailored to individual moments that matter to them within their career at your respective companies. Right? It's not just about onboarding on the basic things, but they want to know, who do I know in this organization? Are there other people I've worked with previously? Hey, I'm a first-time manager, so help me. I don't know how to be one, how to be successful in one. But it is a very scary endeavor if you're a manager for the very first time. They want to know how they're doing with things that they've never done before. They want feedback in the moment so they can learn and they can evolve in a very rich way. So we as a company look for these micro moments on a regular basis and incorporate that into all of our solutions that help you as organizations provide a meaningful, personalized, and contextualized experience for your employees. Look, after all, I'm going to leave you with this. Cornerstone truly believes that people can achieve anything when they have the right development opportunities. I said before, we'll come out of this situation, this environment, and we will thrive coming out of this environment. But we want to be in a position to ensure, like many of you have actually said, in terms of the employee experience, it's reduced for you as a business. This is the time for us to double down and ensure that employees, the experience that they have from their employers is at the highest level. Because like the great late Steve Jobs once said, the number one driver for long-term shareholder value is your talent. Once again, thank you for your time. Stay healthy and stay safe. Sir, over to you.
Coming on the screen. Some of them are actually kind of double click on a few things that you already mentioned during your presentation. I'm going to take the first question, which is connected to the poll question, but also connected to some of the things that you mentioned. Specifically in the context of COVID-19, what are the areas that you think organizations should definitely prioritize and focus on?
Yeah, look, like I said, because of COVID-19, the way our employees, where our talent is very, very different geography. So, for example, companies in markets like South Korea working from home they feel working from home equates not working. So you have to go to work. That equates that you're being productive and you're doing something. So as organizations and markets like that, how do you then change the perspective and the perception that working from home does not mean you're just not doing anything? So as companies, how do we invest in modern tools and technology to help employees in markets like that to be even more productive? In other markets, I said this is the time. This is the time where you literally double down on skills. We're working with a large financial services institution in ASEAN, in a growing market in ASEAN, and they're under lockdown. Every one of their 7,000 employees are under lockdown. But one of the things the CHRO, the chairman, the CEO have decided is this is the time that they really want to provide their talent the right level of skills, not just skills for their current job, but just cross-collaboration skills. So when things turn in the right way, how do these people get even more productive? I was speaking to a CHRO earlier this week, and he said, they're in an industry that is hurting because they serve the airline organization, the airline industry. And for them, it was, how do I take someone who's frontline and serving an airline business and provide him or her the skills that can be replicated in another industry that they are serving that's actually doing really well. So, from my perspective, what companies can do today is look at your employees in different parts of your geography, your employees in different functions, and treat them uniquely in terms of what they need to be more successful. It's not a one size fits all. What's the one size fit all is providing them the tools, the technology, the infrastructure. Beyond that, it's up to us as leaders to ensure that we are constantly with our employees during this time of crisis.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Kartik. There's a couple of questions that converge. So I'm going to ask it for you together. So there's one question related to how do we engage and create that experience when cost cutting is a big priority. So how can we invest or create a business case for investment when it's a very, very challenging financial situation for many organizations?
Yeah, look, you don't have to do is, we don't have to spend millions just to build that experience on a daily basis, right? Like I said, it's the micro moments that matter. Small things, and you've seen this across LinkedIn in many feeds. Bring your team together, have a virtual happy hour, have a virtual lunch, connect with them. If you're doing your one-on-ones, do it over video. And like I said, the table stakes of providing the technology is what's expected. That's not going to change. If you haven't done that, I think it's not too late. Do it right now. There are lots of tools, lots of technologies that you can use immediately, but you don't have to invest millions in creating that experience. It is all up to you as leaders, as managers, employees of your companies to create those micro moments that help your employees feel the belongingness that they want with your respective companies. So whether you're cutting costs or you're investing, you're doubling down, just look at those moments and build upon that.
So in that journey of building those moments, I think one of the roadblocks is not putting the employee at the center and really think about silos of HR function. How do we break that paradigm of thinking functional? This is, recruitment or learning, or as you said, promotion or career development, and really understand that person actually is one experience connected.
Correct. That's a great question. And I think it's not a very easy answer because I just feel a lot of companies are going backwards into the 2000s where it was all about these silos. It's recruitment, it's learning, it's performance, it's development. I think we need to just quickly realize that while those functions are important, businesses don't look at it from a functional siloed perspective. And that's also the responsibility of senior executives and leaders in your respective companies. How do you break down those silos, right? HR is not about just one thing, and different business functions need to also understand that today your HR organization is even more important than ever before. In fact, we were talking to, our CEO was talking to a very senior CHRO, and he said, I've always fought to get a seat on the table. And guess what? COVID-19 has automatically put me at the center of the table because this is where my CEO, my chairman, my board is looking at me and saying, how am I helping my talent? And what am I doing to create those micro moment experiences for our employees? So to answer your question, I think this is directly the responsibility of us as leaders to break those silos down and not go back in time and create those once again.
Yeah. All right. So we have lots of additional questions, Kartik, that have come, especially on LinkedIn. I see a lot of conversations. So I'll invite you to join us on the LinkedIn link later and answer some of those questions. But we're running out of time. So I'm going to I want to double click on what you just mentioned on the seat on the table. And what would be your advice for CHROs who are in this call today with all of us? One thing to start doing, one thing to stop doing, to take on this big opportunity to impact business going forward?
Yeah, look, as I mentioned in my presentation, when you're speaking to your CFO, CEO, COO, or whichever peer in the C-suite or even your board, what they are worried about is how are we going to survive in this environment, especially if you're in a particular industry that's really hurting. There's one segment of executives that saying, okay, how do we make sure that we don't waste this crisis? And there's one segment of executives saying, we have a phenomenal opportunity. How do we double down? So depending on which industry you find yourselves in, my advice to CHROs is start speaking the language of your business executives. Your executives want to know if you're thriving and you found an opportunity to really, again, zoom your business up. Where is the right talent that they can attract today? How do you do it very quickly? How do you do it at scale? If you're in an environment where you believe that you are in a survival mode, and you need to really cut costs, you need to speak the language to say, hey, how do we, that's fine, we do cut costs, but we will come out of this at the other end and we will bounce back. But how do we make sure that our talent is ready to bounce back and be productive from day one? I would say start talking the business language of your leaders, and stop being in this traditional siloed mode of, hey, we have frozen hiring, or our performance systems are doing X, Y, and Z. That's not what your leaders want to know. Your leaders want to know, how do we survive, how do we thrive, and what's going to happen 6, 8, 10 months down the lane, and then how do we make sure that we are coming out of this in the right way.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Kartik. And I think as you started your session by saying that don't waste a good crisis, then this is probably a great opportunity to change those mindsets as well.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Great. So we've really run out of time. I can't believe it's already been 46 minutes. We've crossed the time limit, but I think it was worth every minute of it. So thanks, Kartik, for putting this deck together and sharing your experience and your practical examples.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you so much. Good luck. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kartik. Thanks so much. And thanks, everyone, for keeping the conversation going, your questions and your encouraging words as well. And we're going to be continuing with the employee experience team. As you know, People Matters is doing a virtual conference on 19th of June. And I personally would like to welcome you all to join us for the conference. It's going to be a full day conference. All registration of the delegates is all going to go to UNICEF COVID-19 fund. So I really invite you to join us, not only to continue and learn the employee experience, but also to contribute and do our little bit as well. So thanks once again, and look forward meeting you very soon in our next session. Have a wonderful day.